You are now tuned in to Go Time Dolphins with Charlie Touche and Kadeem Simmons, the Miami Dolphins podcast that's for the fans and by the fans.
Gotta make them lose their mind when it's your time. And it's showtime. Going all out when it's go time. I ain't wasting no time. Gotta make them lose their mind when it's showtime. Cause it's your time. Lay it on the line when it's go time. Don't waste no time.
Good evening. It is week 14. The Miami Dolphins are playing the New York Jets, or as we like to call them over here on Go Time Dolphins, the East Rutherford Paper Planes. If you are watching on YouTube, you will see I am not joined by Charlie Touche. I am joined by, I can't even call him a special guest at this point. He's just part of the furniture. 5YardLee. Lee, how are you?
I'm very good. How are you doing?
I'm not too bad. And gentlemen, cap for life, so gentlemen cap, I hope you are well. So it's interesting, Lee, because I feel like our almost daily phone conversations are how me and Charlie started the podcast. It's just like we just talk so much. Like if I didn't have a podcast already, I'd be like, hey, do you want to just start a podcast and then just have all these talks on the air for everyone to listen to and hear. If anyone who doesn't know, Lee has a podcast already. Lee, tell us a bit about your podcast. I know you've been here so often, but I will never not ask you to promote your podcast while you are on the show.
We've got a podcast called the DolFan UK podcast. It's part of the Dolphins network, so you can find us over there. Find us on the Dolphins website, anywhere you get podcasts. But yeah, it's been cool. Yeah, it was a shock when they asked us to be part of the network. I must say it was very exciting
and fully well deserved. And you have a clip doing around at the moment. You talking to Alex Ingold. What's that about?
So we were talking to Alex Ingold right at the beginning of the season. We spoke to him about being a Walter Payton Man of the Year, and he received that nomination again this year. Obviously, Alex got an incredibly interesting story, not just from what his life was like growing up, but also how he helps other people in the community now, and other people who go through similar things to what he went through. So.
No, it's great. If you aren't listening to the DolFan UK podcast, I have no idea why you aren't. It's a great podcast. Always love it when it comes out. I've been on it before, as most of you guys know as well. But it's always great when a friend gets signed up to the Miami Dolphins podcast network. It's an absolute honor, as always, to be joined by 5YardLee on the podcast. As I mentioned earlier, we are playing the East Rutherford Paper Planes this week. Lee, the Paper Planes are Kadeem coughs, are all but eliminated from playoff contention, and they lost this weekend. Guarantees it. They're out of the playoffs. Tua Tagovailoa had never lost to the New York Jets. I don't think the Jets have won in Miami since like the year 2000 or something dumb like that. What are the odds of the Jets pulling an upset this weekend? And if they do win, would it even be considered an upset?
I mean, does a 3-win team beating a 5-win team constitute an upset in the landscape of the NFL? I don't know. Would it upset us? Certainly.
Yes.
And I don't think we believe we're truly a 5-win team. And I know you are what your record says you are, but I think that, as we've mentioned before, there's obviously some mitigating circumstances where I think it's safe to say that we might be better than a 5-win team, but that is still the record. So yeah, I don't know if it would qualify as truly as an upset, but yeah, I think they definitely upset us.
Yeah, and it's funny because I know some people are saying, well, the Jets have nothing left to play for, so they're going to roll over and all that kind of stuff. And I don't know if I said this to you, but how many years as Dolphins fans would we play the Patriots with nothing left to play for and would love nothing more to beat them? And especially, again, if you're the Jets, you are in that position now where, yes, you don't have the players to play for, but you might be playing for a new contract or a contract in free agency. If you're is it Jeff Olbrich, the interim head coach, you're playing for potentially, keeping his job or getting a job elsewhere. And not to mention, you probably would love nothing more than to not end, but put another nail in the coffin of the Dolphins' playoff hope. So I guess that's my way of asking you. Do you think it will be a straightforward, simple game for the Dolphins?
No, I would expect anything but that. Like you said, how many times have we played spoiler for no other reason than just really because you can? And if anything, sometimes when you're in that position, you actually the reins kind of come off a little bit. There's no real pressure, and actually you play, some of your best football in that position. I hope that doesn't happen to us this weekend, but like you say, there's a lot of people playing for jobs. That's an important motivator. The Jets as an organisation may prefer to maybe not win, but I was actually having this conversation with my brother the other day about the Panthers. He's a Buccaneers fan. I was watching that game, and the Buccaneers kind of tried to throw it away late, and Carolina should have won it. But I was actually like, if you're Carolina, it's probably the best position to be in to show growth, but ultimately come out with the loss, because it gives you the best chance of building. Bearing in mind your season is, like you say, all but done. And we say that more out of politeness and whether it's actually correct. Like the Panthers are going to the playoffs, so their season is done. So losses are probably more important, but it doesn't mean you can't show growth. Again, same thing. There's people there that are playing for jobs. Bryce Young's playing for a job. There's people who wanted to trade Bryce Young earlier in the year, but all these things still apply to the New York Jets. Apply to any team in this position, don't they? They say there's a guy here who has got a crack at a head coaching job without having to go through the head coaching cycle where he may not have been given this opportunity. So he's going to be looking to do as much as he can to secure that employment. And that makes them an incredibly dangerous opponent. And like for all the struggles they've had, there's still a lot of talent on this team. This is still a team that the national media had down as a Super Bowl contender. Okay, they've been wrong. It doesn't mean that on a Sunday they're not willing to put in that. They're not capable of putting that performance together.
Yeah, I watched that game against the Seahawks on Sunday. Me and you are very alike. If the Dolphins aren't playing, that doesn't mean we're going to watch Red Zone. Much rather put a full game on and actually, learn the ebbs and flows of that game. Red Zone is one of the worst things I think to happen to football. I cannot stand it. And I question anyone, fan or no fan, who watches Red Zone over their team. But that's my shout out to Jose Rodriguez. Junus Rocket. Either way, welcome Jose. Welcome to the channel. So I watched the Seahawks Jets game, and I messaged Charlie Wilson. I was like, because obviously he's a Seahawks fan, I was like, you guys are bad. You guys are really bad. Because now, to be fair, it was a good drive from the Jets to take the lead, and then a fumble on the opposing kickoff to open up a 2-score lead. And again, very similar to the Panthers Bucs game, which I also watched. If you're the Jet, you probably got the best of both worlds in terms of you put up a fight to show that you aren't completely awful, but also you lost, so you get to keep a top 5 pick, whatever pick they've got, basically. But no, they still have something. That's a defense which will cause the Dolphins trouble if they don't play to what they know. And it's an Aaron Rodgers who, let's be honest, is probably playing the last few games of his career, and he won't want to go out looking like a 40-year-old quarterback. He'll want to go out looking somewhat decent given how he played this year. So I don't think this will be an easy game as some Dolphin fans think it will. But I do expect the Dolphins to get the job done.
I mean, let's get it straight, right? We're saying that we don't think it will be, but we absolutely hope it is.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah.
We hope for an easy Sunday.
Yeah.
After some of the performances we've watched this year and some of the games we've sat through, I think an easy game would make for a wonderful Sunday afternoon.
You joined me for the Patriots preview, didn't you?
I might have.
I will double check. Actually, I have all my episodes.
Which one?
The last one.
No.
I thought it was
Did
you.
I? Oh, I might have. It was just before I went away, wasn't it?
Yeah, let me double check.
What's happened since then, Kadeem?
Way too much has happened. More episodes. Patriots. Maybe not. Or if it was you, I didn't have you on the name, which I don't normally do. Bills, Patriots, review, preview. Let's have a look. Either way, I remember doing a Patriot preview and saying I think it'll be a close game, and it really wasn't. No, I done a Pats preview by myself. Yeah, so that's why I don't remember Charlie being on it. But yeah, Jose says 2 wide receiver, 1 flex, Lamb, Puka, Evans, AJ. I don't know if that's your fantasy team or your Madden team. That's your Madden team, and that's that new CD Lamb 0 chill, great pickup. But yeah, I thought the Dolphin Patriot game would be a close game, and it wasn't, and then it was, and then it wasn't. And I think the paper planes game will I hope will follow the same or a similar path, which is the Dolphins will get into an early lead, and they'll maintain that lead. But again, the games last year, even at the Black Friday game, the only reason that the paper planes didn't put up a fight because they had no quarterback. With a quarterback, they can do some damage, and the Dolphins aren't careful. This can be a lot closer than anyone wants to give credit for.
I think I said this before the Patriots game on our show. Like, what concerns me is there is a pattern of when the Dolphins get into games that they should win, the Broncos game being the obvious exception to this, is when they get ahead, they almost get bored. They get lulled into becoming cocky. And I think we saw that a little bit at the end of the first half against the Patriots. There was a drive there, 2 almost turned the ball over, in 3 consecutive throws, right in the deep red zone, where they were just being way too picky about trying to force the ball to certain guys on each play, because they're almost the Patriots at that point in the game were just not providing enough of a challenge. But then we saw at the end of that game, the score get closer than it should have been. I told this story on our podcast, but I'll share it with you as well. I was sat in the press box for the Patriots game, and the Patriots reporters in front of me at the start of the second quarter, when the Dolphins started scoring points, actually looked at each other and said out loud, "Do you think the Dolphins will score 50 today?" And then by halftime, one of the reporters sitting just next to them was looking at flights to get out of town earlier. They were not taking losing particularly well. But then that game ended up somewhat close by, almost being lulled into a full sense of security.
You mentioned, that game being closer. Skylar Thompson comes in, fumbles, or a bad snap exchange or handoff between him and the running back, and then he gets benched. He's now the 3rd string quarterback. What do you make of that? Yeah.
Shrug emoji. I don't know. I understand. I thought it was weird that it was even brought up in the press conference, if I'm being quite honest, because realistically, okay, I suppose what it means is you're going to make Tyler Huntley active and you're going to have Skylar inactive, and as the emergency quarterback. But realistically, we've seen all the way along, all we really want is not to see either of them.
Yeah.
I wasn't one of I know we spoke about earlier in the year. I wasn't one of those people who was that excited by bringing in Tyler Huntley. Wasn't overly impressed by the performances he put on the field either. I didn't think the difference between him and the other backups was that big. I think the drop off between Tua and those guys is so significant that if we see one of them, we're in real trouble again. So that has to be our first concern, not who's backing him up.
Yeah, I do think, maybe it is a case of, and listen, this is not the case. The Dolphins are okay. The Dolphins are not bringing in or elevating Tyler Huntley because they know they're going to be up 40 with 15 left to play, and they're going to bring in Tyler Huntley to the Skylar Thompson. That's not what they're doing. But if the Dolphins do go up ahead, and by a significant margin in the fourth quarter, they might be a bit more open to benching Tua with 12 minutes left to play and bringing in Tyler Huntley than actually with 12 minutes to play and bringing in Skylar Thompson. So we shall see.
I think it was almost an embarrassing moment, wasn't it, to have to put your starting quarterback back in? How many times do you see that across the league? Ever, that when a quarterback gets sat, we know McDaniel is reluctant to do it anyway. We know Tua's reluctance to come out of games. But when you finally do it, only to then have to put him back in and actually, execute a field goal drive to really kind of secure that game is kind of insane, and I think it's probably just more, hey, look, we just feel more comfortable handing the ball off with Huntley rather than Thompson. I mean, let's say, hopefully we get to the stage where we see that in the game because it means things have gone well, and they're not playing because of any other reason.
Tim Caro, shout out to Tim. Me and Tim have had a great conversation today over on WhatsApp. He said he should be someone who can at least hand the ball off. And yeah, I agree. I'm looking at the injury report at the moment. Obviously, there's no huddle as Charlie isn't here. But how, I don't want to say important, but how beneficial is it for the Dolphins that both Wednesday and Thursday they've had, or I say the paper planes have had Sauce Gardner, Brees Hall, Elijah Vera Tucker, and CJ Mosley as non-participants. And for CJ Mosley, he was a full participant on Wednesday, but did not participate on Thursday with a neck injury.
I mean, those all are good veteran players. I mean, I don't want to say, are we seeing that point of the year where they say some of these guys, maybe we don't want to do too much before, and risk being in that position where, you get hurt and you end up not playing until the midway point of next season or worse, So that it's not one of those things teams are obviously supposed to do, but it's business, and you don't. If you're an organisation, that's got all that money invested in players, you don't really want them hurting meaningless games. It'd be interesting. I saw the coach's comments about Sauce Gardner with regards to his hamstring, saying that they're going to wait and see, but you can't have someone going half speed against these guys. That's true. I thought it made it sound like he was trending towards not playing. Complete guess, obviously. I don't know anything more, but I mean, like you say, I know people are trying to save jobs. Does having Sauce Gardner out there on a bad hammy really benefit anyone? I don't know. I don't.
Yeah.
I mean, it's easy to say, obviously, when it's not your team, but I think I would probably be saying, just sit this week out then. Cool. And that's, I'll be honest, I actually enjoy seeing him and Waddle go at it. So, I think it kind of robs us of that matchup slightly. But at the same time, I think if it was our team, we'd probably be saying the same thing.
Yeah, and again, Aaron Rodgers has basically come out and said that he will be playing till the end of the season. Like, he's not being, he's not sitting any games out. That'll be interesting to see if the owner still says that. You gonna say something?
it's different for Aaron Rodgers, though, right? Because Aaron Rodgers needs to prove to everybody that he's worth paying to play next year, whether that's the Jets or somebody else. Because, I know he came out and said he wants to play next year. That's great. You still need someone to want to have you next year. And it happens all the time. And what Tim's just said there, Aaron Rodgers has got nothing to prove from a legacy. He says he's got nothing to prove. That's because Aaron Rodgers is an egomaniac.
Yeah.
But he absolutely doesn't. The guy's going to the Hall of Fame, right? That's not really been impacted by what's gone on here at the Jets. That's based on the start of his career and all the way up to the end of his time with the Packers. But at the same time, if he wants employment next year, you still have to convince someone to pay a plus 40-year-old quarterback. And he's only going to do that by actually putting some performances on the field that warrant that.
Yeah, I think, Tim says he's proven nothing so far. I think he has plenty to prove. Yeah, I think with Rodgers, it's, again, like I said, you don't want to, if he is contemplating retirement at the end of the season, again, the last thing he wants to do is be benched and not, play the final few games. I think him doing all of this is he wants to go out on his terms, not being benched and, not having that legacy kind of tainted, I guess.
Also, it doesn't help if you're sitting on the bench and not playing when your Netflix documentary comes out.
Exactly.
It's not good for producers. It's not good for the people who put the money behind it. There's a business element of the whole thing that isn't anything to do with football.
Definitely, yeah. I think with Source, like the coach said, I don't know what coach it was, it's more a matter of him being up against Waddle and Hill. He needs speed. Like again, like you said as well, Lee, you can't be 50% because once that hamstring goes, and again, the Dolphins will target him. So I don't think he'll play. It's not worth. There's nothing to play for, but it's not worth tearing your hamstring and being out for 2 to 3 months when you can just, again, if they lose, he'll probably not get put on IR but won't play again this season, rest the hamstring, and you go again next year. 2 players the Dolphins might have back is Bradley Chubb and Cameron Good, 2 players who have missed the season so far due to it or recovering from injury. What do you think the chances of those 2 seeing snaps?
I mean, I think when they're ready, they're going to see snaps because it's a case of getting them involved. I think the question is how many. And I think with Bradley Chubb, look, we need to win games. That's absolutely no doubt about it. But we also need him to be healthy. And this is a kind of precarious part of the season. Let's not. I just said earlier, the Jets are a 3-win team. They need to be careful with players for next year and stuff like that. Bradley Chubb falls right into that. We're a 5-win team. Do you know what I mean? If you're going to lose this weekend, you don't want to do anything to jeopardize Bradley Chubb for the long term, whether that's, because he's playing for you, because you want to trade. Any of those things all depend on him being healthy. So I think you have to be careful. We saw, a superhero return from Jalen Phillips in regards to getting back on the field quickly. But, it wasn't for a very long time. Different injury, but it could just be bad luck. Could they be related? Do you know what I mean? There's that theory that when you have an injury and you're recovering and you start to compensate slightly more somewhere else, that's why you get those injuries. They tend to be diagonal from each other. There's a whole theory about it. But, so I think it has to be cautious and it has to fit within the scheme of what the Dolphins are doing. You can't just say, hey, Bradley Chubb's back, let's throw him out there. And with Cameron Good, we're still trying to work out what Cameron Good is.
Yeah.
But getting those bodies in the rotation can only be a good thing for the other guys on the field.
Yeah, not to, discredit Cameron Good or anything like that. I feel like us talking about, or the people talking about Cameron Good like his he's this elite, defensive end pass rusher, and it's like, hey, I didn't think the Dolphins were in a place where they really needed him to come back. Now, obviously, there's an argument to be made that with Jalen Phillips out, you are down quite a few edge rushers, and the more bodies you can have in that room and in that rotation, absolutely great. But I don't know what his stats are, and again, that's not even taking a mick out of him. I'm sure he's been. Actually, I know he's been good when he has been on the field.
Yeah, I just think it's but it's important to have those bodies in the rotation because look, your margin for error came down to basically nothing by losing the other night in Green Bay. So the more the fresher you can stay, the more bodies you can get on defense. The defense has looked tired at times. The better. I just think more bodies, the better.
Yeah, I was just looking. Yeah, played 17 games last year, recorded 6 tackles, 3 solos, 3 assisted, no sacks. Yeah, but yeah, it's one of those where we'll see. Shout out to Kenna. Kenna, hope you are well. No other injury reports to really note. Just a normal Tuan Armstead rested or in the injury call. Calais Campbell, same. Tyreek Hill, same. Kendall Arm, same. Anthony Walker, hamstring injury. I think Kendall Fuller's trending towards playing, and we probably will be needed with Cam Smith back out injured.
Yeah, he was out of the red jersey today.
Yeah. So that's always good. And also, I guess, welcome back Blake Ferguson, who looks like he will be making his return to the field after missing quite a few games due to personal reasons. What's your score prediction for the game?
I don't know. I hadn't thought about a score prediction, funny enough. I hope I'm wrong, but I've got a feeling it will be closer than we want it to be. I'm hoping we can put up enough points. Get the run game back on track a little bit. We were talking about this the other day. The ranks for the Jets defense is kind of weird, isn't it? It's like it ranks about 3rd overall in the NFL. I think it's 2nd against the pass and like 20th against the run. Do you know what I mean? So let's get this team moving side to side and back and forth, and let's get them tired and try and put up a score here. But let's take 31-24 or something. Do you know what I mean? I don't think it's going to be a huge win, but I think we will need to put up some points.
I think me being the negative, anxious person that I am, I keep thinking close game, maybe a loss, like I did with the Patriots game. But the one thing we know about Tua and McDaniel is that these are the kind of games that they tend to kind of just cakewalk. And that's not me trying to jinx or anything, but the Dolphins at the moment, they beat bad teams, and the Paper Planes are a bad team. I think this is a get right game for both sides of the ball. I think Aaron Rodgers will give the Dolphins more trouble than Drake May has and other quarterbacks. But I also think that they'll have too much on both sides of the ball. One thing I will say is the Paper Plane special teams made some plays last week. So one to watch out for. Tim says, last few years, Paper Planes are the team we get the most rushing yards. And Kenneth Rankin says, must-win game right here. Do we think Tua's going to show up? If judging by Tua's record in the NFL, when he needs to turn up, he most often does, then doesn't. So, yeah, I'm going to go with Tua turns up. I don't think that's a discussion that needs to be had. But it's a discussion we are still having in 2024, and fans are entitled to their opinion. JML says, hey, JML, welcome. I hope you are well. Long time no speak. But yeah, and then, Tim says, run well. Should be comfortable win, but maybe our special team keeps them in it. So I'm going to go with a 34-20 win for the Dolphins, game done by 4th quarter, and a final touchdown from the Paper Planes will be like in garbage time. But yeah, you never know in football, even if history shows that Tua and two-way against paper planes isn't a matchup that the paper planes enjoy. So yeah, one final thing before we get into bonus time and discuss something else. It's come up in the last few episodes. I'm sure you've heard it. Charlie wants to build a cold weather training facility. Basically like a freezer for the Dolphins to train when they're playing cold weather games. What do you make of that?
How long are they going to stay in there?
Just so say you got Buffalo next week, and you know it's going to be the weather predicts it's going to be snow, or if not, under in and around 20 degrees. So yeah, instead of having your normal training, outside, you'll go in a freezer to get used to the colder conditions.
Okay, I want everyone to go to their freezer, stick their hand in the freezer for 10 minutes, and then take it out, right? Because that doesn't mean you're prepped for the cold. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think this, like, there needs to be a deeper look into what's going on here with the Dolphins and playing in cold weather, because it's not just Tua and Mike McDaniel. It's gone on longer than that. Like, I remember, watching this team go and play in some bad weather, and just like all of a sudden you can't tackle. The defense disappears. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's been all sorts of troubles. But I know I mentioned this to you the other day, but when the World Cup was in Qatar, how long beforehand did the England team go to Qatar? 2 days?
At least a month.
Exactly. Not 2 days beforehand. Because the only way you can prep for hot weather is to play in it. Why do you think so many teams struggle when they come and play against the Dolphins in Miami? The inverse is true. And I think, cool, you can crank the temperature down. You can go do a training session. You can go do an hour. You can do 2 hours. But what's actually happening is you're living in a humid environment. You go and practice, and you come back out the humid environment, out of the cold environment, back into your normal environment, and all you did was survive a walkthrough or a practice, not an entire game day. Tua was out on the field, he likes to get out there 2-3 hours before kickoff. Then the game's 3.5 hours long. You've got a short break at halftime, and the rest of the time you're in and out of the locker room. So you need to be cold that entire time, performing at your highest level. Kadeem, in September, you went to Miami for the first time, right?
Yep.
How long did it take you to acclimatize to the heat?
Depends on the day. That Sunday 1 p.m. heat was
it was brutal, right?
Yeah, disgusting. The rest of the heat wasn't. I've been to Jamaica, so I kind of dealt with it, but yeah, definitely took me longer than a few days to get used to it.
So I kind of gave this analogy the other day to Simon, because obviously he was there in September with us on that trip. When the media and fans say, well, they just need to get over the cold, that's like when we went to Miami, me saying, "Kadeem, you just got to stop sweating, man.
Yeah,
just stop." And then that way you should be able to do it. But that's not how it works. It takes longer. And, I just think the team flying out 48 hours before is not really a reasonable amount of time for you to acclimatise to it. The same way you mentioned the other day to me, when we went to Frankfurt, Charlie and the boys were cold.
Yeah.
Because they come from an area that is, far, the average temperature is far warmer than it was in Frankfurt, whereas me and you were still in t-shirts because it was cool, but it wasn't cold. But it took them. It'd be interesting to ask Charlie, because he was there. Was he warm by the third day in Frankfurt? Because that's what we're trying to figure out here. Do you remember on the Saturday we went to a fan event? We went to the shops. We went to the NFL event in the center of Frankfurt. And Charlie said he had to go into a Costa and grab a hot drink because he was absolutely frozen. And we were essentially going from warm place to warm place all the way along. It's kind of a microcosm of training in one weather and then coming back out and going into the other. Do you know what I mean? It's just I don't think it has an overall effect that quickly. But I'd be interested to see what would happen if next time you were going to go and play in the cold, when you know it's going to be cold, like a Green Bay game, if you went straight after the game before, like you do when you play on the West Coast.
That's it. So that's exactly what I said. I was like, because I do disagree with Charlie. I know Charlie will, come back on and will defend his take, and the next time you're on, we'll have the discussion again. And I think this will be a discussion until the Dolphins actually build it. What I said was my compromise would be you go out there. So like you play the paper planes on Sunday, and then you fly straight out to Buffalo and you practice there. And I use the example of when teams come over to the UK, or you go and teams. Some teams are flying on a Friday, and then they were moaning about jet lag and they were losing. The other team were like, "We've been here a week, it's all good." But then I also said it was kind of like, the teams that were losing were also bad teams. Again, we've had this conversation. I'll quickly go through the comments. Tim Cabot says build the freezer, training sessions in the freezer. Kenna believes we should build it and practice it in it daily. If you practice it in it daily, it will help game time. And then Tim says totally agree. A few hours isn't the same as living in it 24/7. I do think there could be advantages still and worth trying. How the extra layers feel, how the movement feels, how it affects timings. And then Kenna has just said it really comes down to your mental. That pre-game speech was weak. This team is not behind Tua. Yeah, the team isn't behind Tua, and yet they keep on winning with Tua, and they can't win without him. I think with yes, I was like, you spend the week out there and you see what that is like. But then, as I also mentioned, the Dolphins have no real issue in cold weather games, especially with Tua, because they've gone to New England and they beat them, and then they've gone to New York and they beat them. Buffalo this season, really close game. Probably should have won if it wasn't for a fumble. A couple of years ago, snow game, get Buffalo back and forth. Argue they could have won. The Dolphins have an issue against good teams, and some of these good teams play in conditions that are quite cold, and it's now become a narrative. Because I also said to Charlie, and I'll say to anyone else, no team in the NFL is building sun loungers or saunas to play hot temperature games. They just aren't. It's temperature. And also, Chop Robinson just came from Penn State. It's quite cold down there. Anakin got himself from Green Bay. Jordan Poyer just came from Buffalo, where he was completely fine with it. And in my conversation with Tim this morning, Matt Collins spent the last few years in Miami and, was part of that team that couldn't win these cold weather games and couldn't win the big games. Go to Buffalo, do the snow ranges in the snow. He's totally fine because Buffalo right now are a good team and they can win in cold weather, warm weather. That's what the best teams do.
Yeah, hard to argue.
Yeah, so I think from the comments from you see on social media, I think this team this fan base is kind of just tired with a lot of what we're seeing, and there's a lot of excuses. The whole this leak that the Dolphins have kind of turned on Mike McDaniel because he was shivering at halftime.
Dude, that got me the other day.
But on the last episode, I was like, if the team were really that bothered by Mike McDaniel's halftime team talk, then why did the defense only give up 6 points in the second half and the Dolphins offense scored more points? That would have the opposite effect. Surely the Dolphins would get even worse, but they didn't. They put up somewhat of a fight. It's like I said, this fan base is fed up, and I don't blame them. But some of the stuff they're coming out with is at this point quite hilarious, to be honest.
I think part of it is we're looking for ways to justify why we're in the position we're in when we know we should be better than this. And it's, to me, it's always been pretty simple. We were a wild card team at best as soon as Tua went down and got put on IR for 4 games. That was because I said to you then, if we win one game, I'd be shocked. And we won one. Cool. And it was ugly, right? Like there's some decent video footage of us going through it from the watch party. And that's why we're here. You said you thought the Seahawks didn't look that good. How many times have I said to you in the last few weeks? Like I'm convinced we beat the Seahawks with Tua. I thought we were. There was I can't remember who the play was to now. I got feeling it was to Durham Smythe late in the game that would have made it a 1-score game. Do you know what I mean? Like, and that was playing awfully at the time on offense. Like, we had chances. We had games that we would have won with just a little bit of health. And at that same time, not only were we missing Tua for 4 games at the time, and people will probably disagree with me, but I'm still pretty convinced that Raheem Mostert was a huge miss during those 4 games.
Yeah.
Raheem Mostert returned for the Patriots game. We somehow found enough running game to beat the Patriots. Yes, Devon Achane is the number 1 guy now. That's the way it is. Cool. But at that time, we needed some veteran experience, and we lost it in week 1 when Raheem went down hurt as well. And, I think those really hurt us during that 4-game period. But so, yeah, I think now we're just looking for kind of reasons to justify why the Bills have won the division again, and we have to look at that for a week.
Yeah. Also, I said in the last episode that I will always fact-check people, but I didn't need to fact-check this. Kenneth Rankin says, Tua played good in that Green Bay game, right? So if then why you only put up 11 points? The Dolphins scored 17 points and Tua put up 14 points in the second half. And again, I really don't know what you want from your quarterback when he puts up 365 yards and 2 touchdowns. And the best runner on that game was Raheem Mostert for 19 yards from 5 carries.
And he was nominated for the FedEx Player of the Week, right? I know he didn't win it, but he was actually one of the 3 nominated for it this week off a loss.
Yeah, and again, no one has to like Tua. I don't mind that. It helps for discussions and stuff like that. It's just this fan base has got to a point where he gets all the credit when he wins and all the credit when he loses, or all the blame, I guess. And the nuance on the conversation has totally gone. I've said to Charlie, if I was a Bengals fan right now, I'd be somewhat worried that Joe Burrow is playing the best football of his life and can't pick up wins. It's actually really, really bad. If I was the Jaguars, I'd be quite worried that my quarterback keeps on getting injured and we're 2-10, and I might need to replace him because he's also not playing that well. I
played him.
Yeah, I said to Tim Carroll this morning, if the Dolphins get a better run game and just use Tua's accuracy to just carve teams up when they need to, they'll probably win some of these cold weather games. It just doesn't help when before you've even got started, you're down 14. But again, this is a Paper Planes preview. You're going to say, Soily?
I was just going to say one last thing on that Green Bay game, because I almost messaged the group that we were in before that saying, I think I would take the ball if I win the toss.
Yeah.
I think with all the narratives, I would have put my offense out there first and not had them stand on the sideline. And, obviously that looks better with a bit of hindsight, because you get I think it was a 3-and-out, wasn't it, to open up the game, but you then muff the punt and you end up being down a score by the time you get on. And it's, that bad flow of the game of not only giving the ball up, but then giving up the score, putting the defense in a bad position after they won and got off the field. But I don't know. I think I'd be tempted to do it if you get in another cold weather game, maybe on a Sunday night in Cleveland coming up. I think I might entertain the idea.
That's going to get flexed. Yeah. As always, Lee, tell everyone where they can find you.
You can find me at 5YardLee and at the DolFan UK podcast.
Stay tuned for the next 40 seconds as the outro video plays. Join us on the other side of bonus time. Not bonus time. We're changing the name to overtime. Yeah, overtime. Stay with us for overtime. But we shall see you soon. Or not see you soon. We'll see you in 40 seconds. Peace.
Gotta make them lose their mind when it's your time. And it's showtime. Going all out when it's go time. I ain't wasting no time. Gotta make them lose their mind when it's showtime. Cause it's your time. Lay it on the line when it's go time. Don't waste no time. Gotta make them lose their mind when it's your time. And it's showtime. Going all out when it's go time. I ain't wasting no time.
Just want to say, if I do seem a bit annoyed with the tour conversation, I just have it on a daily basis, and sometimes I'm like, I really can't bother to have the conversation. But I do enjoy the conversation. As 5YardLee well knows, I do love a debate around the Dolphins and Tua. So, yeah, keep on commenting, be it live, be it after. I'm at Kadeem Simmons on Twitter. I am happy to talk Dolphins all day long. Lee, we had a conversation, not to move it too much away from, well, this is too far away from the Green Bay to paper planes game, sorry. But obviously, a lot of fans are kind of talking about making wholesale changes, head coach changes, all that kind of stuff. And the name that keeps on popping up is Mike Vrabel, because, you know, he'll make the team tougher and all that kind of stuff. And I think you know this, but I'm not quite sure. Do you know how he did in the playoffs with the Titans?
I know it wasn't great.
Didn't
they go out the first hurdle when they were the number 1 seed?
That they did. So they get the number 1 seed, and that's as a player, as a coach. Yeah, they get number 1 seed in 2020. No, 2021. They go 12-5. They play the Cincinnati Bengals at home and they lose. In the playoffs, he is 2-3. And those 2 wins came in the first time he reached the playoffs. They end up losing to Kansas City in the AFC Championship game. Mm-hmm. But yeah, the next 2 years, lost to the Ravens and the Bengals. First time in the wildcard game and then in the divisional game. So that was Mike Vrabel. But outside of just believing he should get another shot because he hasn't been that bad, do you know how Sean McDermott done when he first reached or his playoff record as a whole?
No, but I'm guessing it's not dissimilar to Mike Vrabel's by the tone of your voice.
So I was looking this up because having a conversation with, again, Tim Carroll earlier. So, and again, we can talk about context, talk about anything we want. But Sean McDermott, arguably the best coach in the AFC East, one of the best coaches in the NFL, his odd analogies aside. So, first season with the Buffalo Bills, he gets to the wild card and he loses to the Jaguars. So he's 0-1. Second season with the Buffalo Bills, they finished 6-10. They don't reach the playoffs. Cool. 2019, they go 10-6. And you know what? Just so I am being totally fair here, let's have a look at what year they drafted Josh Allen. Josh Allen came in 2018. Oh, great. So I'm gonna get this isn't a knock on Josh Allen, but his first season they go 6-10, but it is what it is. He is what it is now. Fair enough. So in McDermott's third season, Buffalo go 10-6. They get to the playoffs and they lose to the Texans. So you
at this point, Dolphins fans would have fired him.
Oh, I'm glad you said that because 100% Dolphins fans are like, nope, he's not it. Josh Allen, you're not it. And we can blow up and we go again. So in 2020, they go 13-3. They get to the AFC Championship game and they lose to the Chiefs. No harm losing to the Chiefs, but, you know, cool. You won some playoff games. Brilliant. In 2021, 2022, and 2023, they have lost in the divisional game every single year to the Chiefs, Bengals, and the Chiefs. McDermott's record is 5-6 in the playoffs. But shout out to Tim Carroll because he said, I want to get this right. again, spent way too long talking to Tim Cowell today, but I love it. Tim said that McDermott and the Buffalo Bills, and also just so you can see how much me and Tim been chatting today as I try and find this message. That Josh Allen is 5-0 against wildcard teams, and then he's 0-5 against a 1-4 seed.
If that was us, you'd say you can't win the big game.
That I literally said we would demand Tua and McDaniel leave and get people who can win. That is exactly what we would do. 100 million gazillion %. And again, Buffalo are the team to beat in the AFC East right now, so they are what we should be looking to beat. But they've won nothing. And the wider point I'm making is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result is the definition of insanity. And blowing it up because after 3 years you haven't won a playoff game, to me, is stupid. Because had Buffalo did that, who knows where they'll be right now. McDermott had 2 playoff appearances in his first 3 seasons, and didn't win a game. Great.
And that could be where we're standing at the end of the season.
Yeah.
2 playoff appearances, no wins.
Not to mention, this is what, his first job as a head coach?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, listen, you're going to go through ups and downs. You really are. He is 50. So he's a lot older than Mike McDaniel, but
as a fan base, we do not ride out the bad times well.
No, I've said to you before as well. All of those fans wanting Dan Campbell, we would have handed them out instantly. Like, can we stop pretending that we give people time? And again, people will say, well, they just know that these people aren't going to be good. Lee, trick question. Who was the quarterback that led the Titans to the number 1 seed?
I believe it was a quarterback drafted by your Miami Dolphins.
It was
Ryan Tannehill.
And we've told everyone he was absolutely awful. So
I said on our podcast, at the time, I felt when we let him go, the organization let Ryan Tannehill down by not putting a team around him that could win.
Yeah.
Yes, he was not going to take you to the promised land on his own. He's not Patrick Mahomes. Cool. 31 of the quarterbacks in the NFL are not Patrick Mahomes. But, I felt that he was good enough to take you where you wanted to go. If you put enough talent on the field, and you weren't playing with, the Jakeem Grants of the world as starting wide receivers. And that, I love Jakeem Grant as a player, and I thought he was a lot of fun. If you followed him through the undrafted series that the NFL did, cool guy. But let's be honest, he's not making the roster we've got right now. And he wouldn't have made that Tennessee roster. And Ryan Tannehill at the helm was enough to take you to the number 1 seed.
Yeah. I'm not saying be careful what you wish for. I'm not that petty, but and again, maybe I'm saying this because I do like McDaniel and I do like Chris Greer and I do like Tua, so I don't want to see him blow it up. But I just think that we can't keep on getting rid of coaches because they haven't won a playoff game in 3 years, but the organization as a whole haven't won a playoff game in 24.
At some point, you've got to see if these people can figure it out. And the only way they can figure it out is by having the opportunity to figure it out. The first 2 years, took you to the playoffs. Cool. That was something that hadn't been done in back-to-back years in how long? In a minute.
Yeah.
Okay, this year we lost starting quarterback for, I think it works out at 23% of the season. Yeah, that's no wonder we're struggling. Plenty of teams would struggle with a backup quarterback. Last season, as an outsider, the narrative the entire season was, well, the Jets are only struggling because they haven't got Aaron Rodgers. Okay, now we know that maybe not true. That maybe that's not true. But that was the narrative. Your Hall of Fame quarterback went down. Guess what? You can't win games. It's not like those two things are not related.
Yeah.
So the fact that we're, precariously positioned right now with 5 weeks to go shouldn't be a shock to anyone. It's okay to be disappointed. We're all disappointed. Like, we want this team to win, but to pretend like they should be winning in the face of what's happened, I don't know if that's realistic.
Yeah. Some people will say that, next man up, no excuses, and it's like, dude, yeah, sure, whatever. Like, have fun with that.
I hope the next man up can't do my job as well as me, because otherwise I'd be out of my job pretty quickly as well. Like,
yeah. Lee, we could talk for hours. We do talk for hours. But I'm gonna let everyone get out of here as they go and spend the rest of their evening. If you're in the UK, you should be in bed sleeping. If you're in the US, enjoy your dinner, enjoy your evening.
enjoy Thursday night football.
Enjoy your Thursday night football. That can be interesting as well. It's what Lions,
Packers.
Packers, and the Lions are missing a lot of players. If the Lions win this game, the narrative will be, see, injuries aren't an excuse, and the Lions did what the Dolphins can't do. And if the Lions lose, it's going to be they just had too many injuries. You can't overcome all their injuries. And I'm going to go, well, which one is it? Because you said
the goalposts are different when it's the team you support.
Very, very true. Everyone, I will be back with Charlie Touche for the review of the Paper Planes game. If you're in London and you want to watch a game with me, I'll be at the Hippodrome on Sunday. Lee, once again, tell everyone where you can find them.
5YardLee.
Find you, sorry.
A 5YardLee, again, same as Kadeem. Like, happy to talk Dolphins all the time, anytime. And also the DolFan UK podcast.
There we go. That is where 5YardLee with Simon Myers talks Dolphins 24/7. But if you don't see me, or you will see me in the next one, but make sure you go and follow and subscribe and listen to the DolFan UK podcast as well. Until then, we shall see you soon. Peace.